It was a wild Monday after a wild weekend in the world of sports. We dive into all of it on Couch Potato Diary Live, which starts right now. Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. We are live on youtube.com/@couchpotatodiary, twitch.tv/primetimepk, and kick.com/primetimepk. Thank you all so much for hanging out today. I think we came in a little hot on the old microphone, but either way, very happy to have everyone involved today. We're going to be talking a lot about the NHL, NBA, NFL draft, and the Toronto Blue Jays. That's what's coming up. Was hoping to get to a lot of this on the show yesterday, but was feeling a little bit under the weather. And so I thought instead of just zombie moding it with you guys on the stream, I thought let's take a beat, let's take a day, and we'll cover all of it, because there's a lot that we can get into. And so a lot I want to hear from you. Like, I got thoughts on everything. So wherever you want this ship to roll, we'll roll through it with you guys here on the show. And that's the advantages of coming and checking the shows out early on the live stream. As always, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for that great Calgary swag. We are sold out of these cannons hats right now, but have no fear, because more are certainly on the way. I'm also, you can't see it, but I got the Run YYC shirt in here right now. So some great Calgary stuff over at seaofdead403.ca, and some really fun stuff that is coming up here in the next little while. Also, if you need that energy, because, you know, playoffs be going late, and we got to start, I mean, not super early, it's noon out east, but still, we got to start early, and you need that energy from Swift Energy. Check out swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. With the democratic process wins out in Canada last night. We have more voting you can do today over at twitch.tv/primetimepk. Let me know which one of the three lost teams in the playoffs so far in the NHL that you think have the best opportunity to come back. We had a couple more teams added to that list over the last 12 hours or so. So let's talk about it and start out with our look today at the National Hockey League playoffs. One of the best series in the playoffs so far has a very decisive end to one of their games anyway last night, as the Dallas Stars take it to the Colorado Avalanche 6-2. And now the Dallas Boom Stars have a 3-2 series lead over the Avalanche of Colorado. And it was it must have felt like an avalanche for Colorado in game 5, because, like, just right off the opening face-off. And man, I tweeted it out last night, but the most dangerous play in all of sports right now is the face-off at center ice, because we'll talk about the Tampa Bay Florida game in a second, but you get 2 goals scored off of the ensuing face-off. And then in this game, you get a goal scored off the opening face-off. Dallas gets it, they dump it in, McKinnon doesn't have a clue where the puck went, Wyatt Johnston gets to it, just throws it on goal, Blackwood doesn't have his post, it's in the net, and the city of Dallas and Fort Worth just goes absolutely insane. And that crowd really never let up. And it was the exact start that the Stars needed. They were talking about it on the ESPN broadcast last night, talking about how they had only led for, what was it, like a minute and a half or a minute 27 in the entire series so far, and then they led for 1951 of the first period. And look, that game was never tied, so I guess they led for, what would that be, 59 minutes and 51 seconds of that hockey game. It was the start the Stars needed, and honestly, that game was a lot of what the Stars needed, because Dallas has been able to stay in that series, and they haven't been getting a whole lot from their, pardon the pun, Stars. Miro Heiskanen, it's not his fault. He's hurt right now, so they're not getting a whole lot from him. That was Johnston's first goal of the playoffs. Rantanen was very quiet leading into it. Like, that they have been able to hang with this high-powered Colorado Avalanche team without really any of their big guns really getting going. And last night, couple of them got going, and the biggest one is Rantanen. And it was one of the things I was talking about when that whole trade process was going down, was that I didn't understand why Carolina was so ready to get rid of him. Like, I kind of understand it from you want someone to sign contracts for you and stuff like that. But I just looked at the playoff success that Rantanen has had. And let's pull up the playoff numbers here for Mikko Rantanen. And look, even including this series, which has not been great for him. You look at it here. Yes, we're going to expand that. Thank you. So he has 4 points in 5 games now in this playoff series. And it's funny how one night, all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, you know what? Close to a point per game guy. He's doing great. But before that, or I guess including that, it is 86 career playoff games and 105 career playoff points. So you look at, like, that's basically, leading into this, that is a season's worth of playoff games, which just on the face of it is nuts. But like a full NHL regular season schedule worth of playoff games, and he's a 100-point guy. He is someone who steps up in these games, and that's why I was wondering, why is Carolina getting rid of a player like that? Because this is the guy, these are the guys you want on your team. These are the guys that you want to take you to the next level, specifically Carolina. But now we're getting into a Carolina rant. And so you bring him into Dallas, and it's like, well, this is perfect. Like, that this team is going to be in these battles. They are going to have a guy now who can step up. And he hasn't. And look, this has been a tumultuous year for him, to say the least, right? Like, he is in a very good spot, in a spot that he has won in before, a spot that he is comfortable in, and he goes out and gets traded. Obviously, like, there are business sides of it. I don't think Colorado got enough for him, but I mean, still, this is a big change. Now he has to go to Carolina, and it happens at around the worst time, because he gets a couple of games under his belt, and then, oh, hey, here's the Four Nations, and you're gone for a couple of weeks. And then he goes and plays in that tournament, comes back, and is just expected to click right away. While also just being, and I'm sure they weren't asking him, it was through his agent, but it's like, hey, you gonna stay? You gonna stay? You wanna stay? You wanna stay? How about staying? Well, have you thought about staying? And so you're trying to figure out, from a hockey standpoint, if you have a chemistry in a situation where it's been difficult to build a chemistry, from a life standpoint, if you want to live in Carolina for the next 8 years, and all of this while you're trying to also be a very good hockey player. So there's a lot of distractions that go with that. And so then, of course, he has another big change, and now he has to go to Dallas, or not has to, now he goes to Dallas, and now he signs the contract. So at least that is put to bed, but you are still now, like, just trying to jump on the treadmill while it is at full sprint. And then you get into the playoffs, and you face the only team in the NHL that knows you as well as they would in Colorado. So there's a lot going on with this dude. And now he's just expected to, hey, save us, won't you? And he hasn't in the first couple, but he was good in this game. And just getting that kind of a finish has to be such a weight off of his shoulders. And such a, I mean, it's a boost for the team. And it's a boost for him as well to be able to go out and accomplish that. So that, it just, when you look at the entirety of that game for the Dallas Stars and just kind of the box score of it, Wyatt Johnston gets his first massive goal. Harley gets a goal. Rantanen gets his first. Wyatt Johnston then gets his second. Marchment scores. Roope Hintz scores. It's all these guys that they needed to get going, and Hintz was into an empty net, but he still had a good game. It was the guys that they needed to get going that got going here. On the Colorado side, there is a problem here. And we talked about, like, hey, Dallas is doing this without Miro Heiskanen. And now the Avalanche, they're doing this without their top defenseman as well. The problem is Heiskanen's absence is because he is hurt. Makar's absence has been he's just not playing good enough. And look, this is the most talented defenseman in the National Hockey League right now. That there is no question about it. And we are in a, I think, golden age of defensemen in this league. When you look at Heiskanen, who should be in this, who I still think is a little underrated. And it's funny, I feel like he is getting properly rated by not playing in this series. So you still have, like, you have those guys. You have Makar with Taves on his own pairing, who is excellent. You have Quinn Hughes out in Vancouver. You have Fox in New York. And I know, like, I'm based in Calgary, bringing that name up isn't going to win a lot of people over. But he is very talented as well. And you kind of just go through all the different, all of the Hugheses and everything like that. Like that, there's a lot of talented defensemen. And Makar, I do think, stands above the rest, but not in this series. They need him to get going. Like, the Landeskog story has been great. Coyle and Nelson, I don't think have really made the impact in this series that Colorado would have wanted them to. But this is a talented hockey team. But it is not one that is so talented that they can survive not having that guy step up and be the guy in these crucial situations. And so they need a big Cale Makar game to get this going. When we had the Twitch poll, that can only last 10 minutes, by the way, which I don't love. But either way, we had the poll up here on twitch.tv/primetimepk. Which of the teams has the best opportunity to come back from being down with like 3 losses in the series, and Colorado wins the poll. And I don't disagree with that. A, they're in a better spot because it's 3-2. But B, they still have they are still in this series, and Makar really hasn't had that great of a game yet. I don't think you have had a big game from Coyle or from Brock Nelson or any of these guys. And so they've been able to hang around, really with Blackwood playing as well as he has, and we'll get to him in a second, and with McKinnon being Nathan McKinnon. And boy, was he again last night when they are trying to get going. And they're moving in on the power play, and you get McKinnon like just creating all these chances, and all the attention goes to him. And I have talked about this at length. I love how they use him in the offensive zone. And this is supposed to be a bit about how Colorado should be concerned, but I have to gush about this because it is so unique. And I think you are starting to see a few teams using it. The only other example actually I have of it right now is actually Swift Current in the WHL, where they would have a couple of their guys, Misselbacher, who has an amazing shot as well. They have him up at the top of the zone. McKinnon, he sees the ice so well. And so when you get him up at the top of the zone, he is just able to kind of take everything in, you know? Like Wayne Gretzky was able to do it from behind the net. Like that's his office, right? He can just see the ice. He knows where everyone is supposed to be. McKinnon, he's got a good enough shot that he can score from up there, and he has the vision. And okay, I see all of this. Also, he is the second fastest skater in the league, I would suggest. Like I'm sure there are numbers that maybe don't back that up, but watching it's him and McDavid, right? And so he is quick enough that when he sees an opening, it just goes. And so he gets a chance on the power play, and he just goes, and it's a pass across, and it's a one-timer. And Nate just had a great chance, and they made the joke on the broadcast. He had the wrong club out on that one. We needed a little less loft on it because he missed the open net by actually quite a bit. But they had some really good chances. They just need to capitalize on them right now. In the Twitch chat, Deeds Deeds, also subscriber on Twitch. Endlessly appreciative of that. Thank you so much. I find it a little concerning how the Avs can't seem to keep their momentum going from game to game. Or is it just Dallas controls it, and when they take their foot off the gas, the Avs jump on the opportunity? I just think these are two evenly matched teams right now. And so when one does take take a half a step back, the other one's going to pounce. And so that you saw that. Like Colorado, I'm not going to say weren't ready to start the game because it was 9 bloody seconds, but McKinnon, it's just one where he's looking left and needed to look right, and the puck's in the back of the net. Blackwood isn't all the way on the post, and it's in the back of their net. It's a quick turnover, and Hintz is coming up, and instead of gliding over to try to take the pass away or try to take Rantanen away, both guys are focused on the puck. It's those little mistakes that these teams are taking advantage of. And then kind of the same thing. Once Colorado is starting to build their momentum up a little bit, it's a deflection off of Lekkonen's stick, and it goes into the net. And it's Nathan McKinnon just with a quick shot, and he gets an opportunity because he had that much room. It is just, I think this series and these teams are so closely matched that it looks like, oh man, these guys are really falling apart, but it's just 2 or 3 misses, and it's an opportunity taken advantage of. And then you look at where this game really did swing in Game 5, where Colorado has this momentum. It was 3-0, now it's 3-2, and one of the best players in the world is on a roll. And again, they're doing this, and Makar hasn't really stepped up in this series yet, and then it is a really stupid penalty that ends up getting to the goal. I forgot to write down who took the penalty last night. Am I able to get to this one? Was it really on? No, okay, there we go. Malinsky, that was the penalty. He takes a dumb elbowing call in the second period. It leads to a power play goal, and then Dallas is just gone from there. So again, it is the little mistakes that you are seeing in this series, and these teams are so good that they are able to take advantage of it. And so it looks like it's like, man, they took their foot off the gas, but it's like, yeah, for a second, and then they were zoomed past. That's how good these teams are. And before we get to the next game, that is just kind of an overall takeaway I have had. I mentioned this on social media last night. It feels like every failed clearing attempt is ending up in the back of the net. And I think if you go through, you're not going to see like, oh man, these teams are really close. I just think they're all really good, just to be perfectly blunt. And I know, like, that's probably not going to be my social breakout of the day, is that NHL playoff teams are good at the NHL. But all these teams are so good, and you give them any kind of an extra opportunity to have more zone time, more shots on goal, give these guys more opportunities to create offense, it is going to come back to bite you. And so we have seen in this, like I said, Colorado, just a rough play off of a face-off. Tampa Bay, it's just a quick shot off of a face-off win that hits off of a couple of dudes and goes into the net. But it is those failed clearing attempts that come back to just kill you. And so we are seeing that in this playoffs, and I feel like, just anecdotally, it is happening more than I have remembered, that there have been so many failed clearing attempts, and then B, they're capitalized on like that. Like, it is just such a body blow when you have a chance to get it out and you can't. That has been such a killer. And also, I feel like teams have been kind of bad at some of their breakouts. And this is it's something I wanted to pay a little bit closer attention to. And honestly, the first time I really thought of it was because we hear a lot, right? Like, clean exits, clean entries, those are important. And I think those are massively important. It's why I've talked about how key the neutral zone is in a lot of these hockey games. But when we were talking with Lauren Kelly a couple of weeks ago about Zane Parekh, and she was talking about how that first pass out of the zone is such an important one. And when she first said it, the first thing the first image that popped into my mind is like a defenseman behind the net, and it's a good pass up the ice to get it out. But that one's easy. Every defenseman is making that pass, right? Like, think of the worst defenseman in the playoffs right now. That guy, I know some of you thought of Evan Bouchard. I'm kidding. But think of the worst defenseman in the playoffs right now. They're making that pass. It is these passes. It's the one that Shen bobbles, and it ends up in a goal for St. Louis. It is the one where, not a defenseman, but Byfield doesn't get a good clearing attempt, and it ends up in the back of their net and maybe shifting the entire series of Los Angeles against the Edmonton Oilers. But it is those times where there is chaos. And too much right now, I feel like, from these teams, when there's a little bit of chaos, is just get it and just and try to get it out of the zone. For those watching, that looked more like a golf swing or a baseball swing, but it was me desperately trying to clear the puck out of the way. There's been too much of that and not enough, let's just get this out in a controlled manner. And I get, like, you want to get it out, but it feels like the pressure of the playoffs and the pressure of these offenses is getting to defenses a little bit more now. And so that is creating a lot more of these turnovers. And so when you can have a bit of a scramble in front, and instead of let's get it out of here, just shoot it up the middle of the ice, oh no, it's been knocked down, there is no more glassing out. There's no good pass and get that out of the zone. And now let's create an opportunity off of that. It feels like a lot of breakouts are just happening because of turnovers, instead of we made a good first play out of our zone. So I think the pressure of the playoffs is getting to a lot of teams, but I've really, really noticed a lot of times that there has been key turnover leads to a key goal. And that it shows the high level of teams that we have in the Stanley Cup playoffs right now. A couple more of those high-level teams faced off yesterday in Florida as the Panthers take control of their series with the Tampa Bay Lightning. The big discussion in this, and you knew it the second that puck went in, I think that there is I think that there is a real discussion to be had about whether Aaron Ekblad should be in this series or not. Or should have been in that game or not. And there was part of me, when you see it in slow motion, it actually doesn't do it justice, because it just looks like he's pushing Hagel down. And it is unfortunate that Hagel goes down, and it's honestly like, again, I'm not a professional athlete, but for those of you who are familiar with my time in Calgary, one of the jokes is that I've had a few concussions. And part of it, like, not to get too whatever, but like, if you see me walking around, the posture is not ideal. And so, that's where it has gotten me a lot. And that's where a lot of these concussions come from. Not poor posture, but it's the impact. And then the last thing to go is that your head whips back and hits the ground. That's something that it comes up a lot. And it's why, like, there was a lot of the talk about, like, keep your helmet on in fights and everything, because it's not this is a weird thing to say. It's not the punch in the face that gets you. It's the solid concrete or ice on top of concrete whipping your head back at the end. That's the one that ends up really getting you there. And so that's what happened with Hagel. You see it in regular speed. It doesn't look great. And so I will absolutely listen to a conversation about how Ekblad should have been kicked out of that game and maybe even suspended for coming up here for game 5, I guess then. But I feel like people are forgetting the plot with this a little bit. It does look bad because it is Ekblad specifically who scores that goal. But this ain't soccer. It's not like if he would have got kicked out, Florida has to play with 4 on the ice the rest of the night. There still would have been someone there. They still are allowed to have 5 guys out on the ice for there would have been a penalty on that, but 5 guys for the majority of the game. And Tampa Bay, in that situation, regardless of who was supposed to be out there, did a bad job of defending who was out on the ice. So yes, we can have the conversation that Ekblad probably shouldn't still have been playing in that game. But if you're Tampa Bay defensively, you can't look at one of the better players in the world hanging out in the slot area, and you can't look at him and go, well, he shouldn't be playing in this game, so I'm not going to mark him out of protest. That's not how this works. It was a defensive breakdown from the Tampa Bay Lightning that gives Ekblad his, funnily enough, second game-tying goal of that game. The first one gets called back because of a fairly obvious offside, but that one, he's left alone and he scores. And it's a great finish by him. Instead of just like, quick shot, and hammering it on net. The poise and the patience to get it, put yourself in a good spot, see where there's going to be an opening on Vasilevsky and fire that one in. That's where you get that type of a goal. And so, yes, Lightning fans, I will listen all day to you complaining about I will listen to you all day complaining about whether that guy should have been in there or not. But the fact of the matter is that he was, and they should have defended him. We got Jensen Smith in the YouTube chat. Hey Jensen, how's it going? Not much is up. Just talking about hockey on YouTube on a Tuesday. So happy to have you around. Thanks for thanks for stopping by today. But back on the hockey front here. This was a game of missed opportunities for Tampa Bay. They did, and look, I am, again, referencing Calgary here, but I was on Calgary radio here on Friday, and I had said, like, the Leafs have passed the Lightning in terms of just, like, the overall franchises and how they are playing hockey. One has had a significant amount of success in the postseason, and the other has had a significant amount of failures in the playoffs, and that has led to a lot of jokes and everything like that. But I have hated how Tampa Bay has played in this series, and for the most part, I thought that last game, they finally found a way that worked, and it was to make the game as low event and boring as possible. We think of Florida as this, like, heavy, powerful, strong hockey team that is going to really beat you up. And they will. But I do think that they don't get enough credit for how quick they can be and how much offense they can just kind of throw at you, for lack of a better term. And for Tampa Bay, they really were able to just steal a basketball phrase, they were able to dribble the air out of the basketball in that game. They did a great job of it. But when you are going to do that, when you are going to have low event hockey, one of the things you need to do is take advantage of the opportunities when you get them. Because the good thing about low event hockey is that you then, just by definition, have fewer events to have to worry about. The problem is that when you don't take advantage of yours, that means the other team has fewer events that they need to take advantage of for them to get back into it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, it's, if you are only going to have, let's say, 6 big things that happen in a game, But if you're only going to have 2 of them, that means the other team only now needs 3 to be able to take advantage. And that's exactly what we saw here, is that, okay, you can limit the chances and everything, and that's fine, but you have to put it away when you get the chance. And they did. They get a 5-minute power play because of a really, really shitty play down in the corner. And we'll talk about that one again here in a second. But it's a 5-minute power play. And you have a chance now to put Florida away, to get the momentum back on your side, and to get your fucking power play going again, because it has been dreadful so far. And yeah, I have not liked it at all. We got a Mark Smith now in the Twitch chat as well. Hey Mark, thanks for stopping by. I think streaming is going really well. We're having a lot of fun streaming and chatting here on the day. Oh, we also got Mark in the Kick chat as well. So we got Mark Smith all over the place here today. But on back on the Tampa Bay side, the power play has been bad. If you can get that going, you can get your top guys going, all of a sudden the entire face of this series shifts. That didn't happen here. Instead, what happened is they don't do anything with it. The power play looks dreadful. It gives Florida more momentum coming out of it. They actually take a penalty at the end of it, and Florida is able to get a power play opportunity off of that. And I think that was the one that they thought they scored on and then didn't score on because of the offside. So it was just, that was the missed opportunity for the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was their chance to come out and really solidify, like, hey, we are in this series. And instead, they did the exact opposite of that, and it has them in a bad spot here. I do just quickly want to mention, going back over it, it was Greer who took it was Mikkola who took the hit. It was Mikkola who took the hit, and then Greer serves the 5 minutes for him. Mikkola shouldn't play in the next game, and probably not for the series. That was just a horrendously unnecessary and dangerous hit, and I hated that. I'm happy that there was a review. I am happy. Oh, hey, look at that. We got a nice little graphic up there in the top corner. So greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. But back on the thing, like, there's no point in Mikkola doing that. He goes out and, like, you get the knockdown, whatever, and then it's like he goes back and it's like he's Nelson Muntz in The Simpsons, like, oh, hey, there's someone I haven't hit yet. And he is the definition of vulnerable. And I will admit, like, I had a couple of screens going at the time of that. And so I didn't quite see the live. And so when they're going back and doing the slow motion, you see the player, Gergensen's, right? He is in a vulnerable spot going toward the boards, and you can see Mikkola coming in. It's like, oh man, he railroads this guy, hey? And he just kind of knocked him down, and then he gets to his knees. It's like, oh, well, that wasn't too bad. They're going to reverse this. And then you see oh no. So I was happy that review was a quick one, because that was ugly. That was ugly really, really quickly. And I don't think he should play. If you want to suspend Ekblad for the next one too, I will hear that. But on the Mikkola one, I'm not going to accept, like, oh, well, he got kicked out of the game, so he's already served it. No, I don't think he should play a game for the rest of the series. So that was game 4. I think a 3-game suspension is fine. And whether that carries into the next one or not, whatever. But that is, when we talk about the hits we need to get out of hockey, that's that's one of the hits we need to get out of hockey. The checking from behind, I feel like sometimes has been lost a little bit in all of this, and I think we need to do that. So I think we need to get that one out of there. It was Mark Smith on the follow, so greatly appreciated that. Thank you. No, I do not have a Discord. We've talked about Discord on here before. I just don't think I'm big enough to have one yet, and nor am I don't want to say tech savvy, but I have a lot going on. I'm not able to manage it in the way that would make it fun for anyone, quite frankly, so I haven't gotten there yet. Thank you, Deeds, essentially moderating in my chat for me. I greatly appreciate that. But yes, on the socials here, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. I am at Primetime Klein. So thank you, Mark, for that. And once we are done here, actually, you know what? I'll just I'll hit that follow right there. So greatly appreciate that from you there. Deets, also in the chat here. We were talking about this game. Tampa looks like their window is being held up by toothpicks right now. That is very fair. And like I said on 960, this has felt for a couple years now, like the window, I don't want to say the window is closed because I genuinely don't believe that from a Tampa Bay Lightning perspective. But I do think other teams are passing them by now. Like, this series has not looked close from a Florida Panthers, say series with an iPhone. Oh, wow, I'm getting a little choppy there. Sorry, I'll close that. You say series around an iPhone, and it loses its mind a little bit. But Tampa Bay, I don't want to say their window is closing, like I said, but I do think that when you look at Florida has been significantly better than them in this series. I don't think there's a question about that. I think the Panthers have definitely, clearly been the best team in this series so far, and they are taking it to them. So Tampa Bay, there's a bit of a gap there. And I know, like, some people had some pushback on it. I do believe that Tampa Bay is behind Toronto right now when it comes to the standings and everything like that. So I think that Toronto is just a step ahead of Tampa Bay. When you look at, like, again, Tampa Bay's had the playoff success, and that is where ultimately a lot of this is measured, but they haven't finished ahead of the Leafs in the standings since 2019-20. Aside from that, it has been the Leafs ahead of them, and it is just their playoff failures. And now, I get that it's Ottawa, but those playoff failures are going away, and now Tampa kind of looks like the Leafs here. And so you still have Kucherov, who is awesome, although he hasn't been in this series. You still have Point, who is awesome. Gensel has been really, really good, but again, I think he's been too quiet in this series. Vasilevsky is awesome. But where they were able to get it for a long time in that cup run, and then they lost it, is a lot of those depth pieces, right? And it was Yanni Gourde, and then he goes away. And now he's back, and he's not that guy anymore. It was Blake Coleman for a while there. It was Tyler Johnson for a bit there, right? Like, they had these solid depth guys who were able to kind of win a lot of these battles and keep that momentum going. You don't have that anymore, and you don't have that at the same time that Kucherov's starting to, at least in this series, slip a little bit. So it is just all these things combining. And so I think that they are going to be a good team for a while. And I think that there is a lot of value in that. But in terms of Stanley Cup contending window, unless they do something drastic, I think that has closed, to be perfectly honest with you. So that's kind of where it's at. So sorry, I'm a little bit all over the place on this, but just that's where I kind of think that one is at. So that's a recap of what we saw yesterday. Here's what's coming up tonight. A giant one between the Kings and the Oilers. And we had Deeds in the chat here just a second ago. Where was this one now? Yeah, NHL teams are good at hockey. Jim Hiller, 2025 playoffs. Not really, but after recent comments he's made in his pressers, he might as well have said that. Man, I am all for giving a lot of people opportunities in coaching and everything like that. But if the Kings lose this series, that guy should be gone immediately. They are, oh my God, they are so much better than Edmonton in this series. And I feel this series makes me feel like I'm taking crazy pills. That's where I am at. And it feels so much like excuse making. But when both teams are trying, the Kings are kicking the hell out of these guys. Like, there is no competition for it at all. And so, like, again, and part of this I might feel is a little bit committed to it because I said that I think the Kings are better right now, and this is their best chance of doing it. And then I did kind of mock a lot of the decisions that the Oilers made when I was on the radio out here on Friday. But still, I get that they have come back, and I get that they have won these games, but the Kings have let them. This has so much been the Kings losing the games in this series, not the Oilers winning the games so far. And Deeds brought it up. Hopefully LA can not choke another one away tonight, and the Wild can take home a win. We'll talk about that one here in a second. But yes, no, hopefully that is the case. Hopefully we don't have to deal with that because, again, and whatever. I don't want to homer this, whatever that, but the things that drive me the craziest are when one team plays poorly, they get let back into a game, and then everyone is like, oh, see, eat it, we told you guys. And it's like, that's happening on the Bouchard thing right now. It's happening with just Edmonton in general right now. They have not played well in this year. If we are going to score this as fight, right? Like a scorecard. Okay, well, that's a 10-9 round, that's a 10-9 round, that's a 10-9 round, that's a 10-9 round. The Oilers, like, they have won the last parts of a couple of rounds, but like they have played good in 3 periods so far, and the series is tied. Now, from an Edmonton standpoint, you can say, yeah, we played good in 3 periods so far, and it's tied. If we play good in 6 more periods, we're off to the next round. But I still look at the whole process of all of it, and it is, everything is pointing to the Kings, except for some of the decision making, and that's where Hiller comes back into this one. I think it's been coaching that has cost them, and it has been 2 big things that has really, really cost them. In Game 3, it was that brutal challenge. There was no way that was goalie interference, and that is 100%. You are playing NHL 25, and you're on tilt, and a goal happens. Like, well, that shouldn't have counted. Shouldn't have counted. Like, and you almost feel like you're not even looking at the situation, or you're not looking at the play anymore. You're looking at the situation. You are looking at, we are playing too good, and we are better than these guys. We don't deserve for this game to be tied, so there must be something wrong with that. And there wasn't. It wasn't goalie interference at all. Even if you are looking at that through the most silver and black color glasses of the LA Kings, you cannot look at that and think that that was goalie interference. It gives Edmonton a power play, which you never want to do, and it costs them, and the Oilers win. And then in Game 4, it was a strategic error. They sat back, and it cost them. They just eased up, and it has now cost them a couple of times in this, and it almost cost them in Game 1. And so it was a weird combination of, they just sat back, but then they also only played like 10 guys in the 3rd period of that game. And so by the time you get to overtime, they are bagged. And that has been not great for them. And like that overtime, the Oilers killed them in it. So it is, they sat back, but they only sat back with a few guys. Like Kuzmenko had, I think, 3 shifts in the 3rd period there. Again, if I am trying to protect a lead, he is one of the last human beings on earth I would do that with. But if I am trying to add to a lead, he is one of the first human beings on earth I would do that with. And this is where, and this is probably a summer podcast, the whole discussion of clutch comes up a lot. And I have stated, I don't believe it to be a thing necessarily. I think clutch is more, you stay good in big situations, then you find this other mystical land that you happen to have. We can have a bigger discussion about this later. But the point of this is that so many teams, the way that so many teams and players lose it when it comes to clutch situations is they deviate from what got them into the clutch situation in the first place. And that ends up costing them. And that is where a lot of the frustration can kind of come from. Because you have a Kings team that has been playing perfectly through 2 periods. And then all of a sudden you feel the need to switch because, well, now we're up by 2. Let's get into a defensive shell and let's just ride this one home. It's like, okay, but you just kicked the shit out of them for 2 periods. Why would you change anything? And teams do this all the time. You think basketball is one of the worst examples for it, where you are running a brilliant offense through 45 minutes of a game, but then it gets down into crunch time. It's like, well, all of that has to go out the window. ISO, 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 ISO. Man, look at the clutch stats. Can't believe all these guys are coming up short. It's like, yeah, because there's 8 dudes on them because you're just running the ball just through them, and we're not running our regular offense anymore. The Kings have choked in a couple of these games now. They have allowed the Oilers to get back into this series at a time where it shouldn't be close. This series we should be talking about the Kings having a chance to wrap this one up tonight. I'm not going to go so far as to say that it should have been swept already. Could have been. I'm not going to say should have been because one of those, whatever. There is, though, I do think a big discussion that can be had about, I'm going to have to just turn my phone off for these now. A big discussion that could be had about Evan Bouchard, because he is such a boom or bust type of a player. He has been dreadful in the defensive zone. And I know a lot of people point to, oh, it's only when he is playing with Darnell Nurse. No, it is not. It absolutely isn't. Look, he plays worse with Nurse than he does with others. And I think that's another big conversation to be had out in Edmonton. But he is a liability when it comes to his own end. And that has become a real problem. But then he comes out and he scores two of the biggest goals of the season for the Oilers. So they're going to have to pay this guy coming up here in a little bit. And I have no idea what that contract looks like. It's kind of like the Erik Karlsson thing. I think he's a little bit better in his own end than Karlsson. On the high end, though, maybe he's a little better offensively. God, that feels blasphemous to say, but it kind of feels like he at least has the potential to do that, right? So I don't know what you do with that kind of a thing. Like I think like one of the things I saw on X was he is the most dangerous player on the ice to both teams. Like he is so dangerous in his own end for Edmonton, and he is so dangerous in the offensive end against the other team. And that's where Ekholm has been so key for them to be able to lock him in and really find that perfect match for him. I do think there is some internal growth that he needs to do, but he has been such a polarizing topic in this series. I do think now that it is going back to LA, it is still advantage Kings because of what you can do kind of line matching wise. If Edmonton wants to stay with McDavid and Draisaitl, I pointed this out on the radio on Friday. If I'm the Kings, like, cool, great. I'm either going to put the Danault line out there and try to slow you down, or I'm just going to put my top line out against you. And this is something, Winnipeg did this a couple years ago in, I can't remember if was it the bubble or was it the All-Canadian year, but around the pandemic. It must have been the All-Canadian year, because I was talking about it with Marat on this show, which, by the way, we just celebrated 4 years. Forgot to mention that. But one of the things that the Jets did when they played the Oilers was they just put the Scheifele line out against them. It's like, look, we might lose that. And we don't lose a lot with our top line, but we'll get you with the next three. And the Kings can do that here. If they just want to match Kopitar against McDavid and Draisaitl, Kopitar, Kempe, and Kuzmenko, again, when allowed to, have been playing phenomenal hockey in this series. And now McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hyman is the best line you can put out in the NHL. But I think that Kopitar and Kempe are good enough that, okay, if we're going to lose this, we're only going to lose it by one. But then the Byfield line and the Danault line are going to just eat the rest of your lineup's lunch and just take it to them. And so I still think the ability to kind of line match, have home ice advantage, play the matchups that way, gives the Kings the edge here. But god damn, do they have to use it, because it has been so frustrating to see that. Deeds in the chat here. With how fast the Oilers are, LA shortening its bench makes no sense. In the third period, they looked like they were playing in mud. And then he said Edmonton is going to pay Bouchard. Yes, no, I would agree with that. So yeah, no, I completely agree. I think if you want to shorten your bench at times in the playoffs, fine. It's the playoffs. You want to have your best players out there more often than not. But I do also think that, to your point, like the speed that Edmonton can play with and the speed and just the high collision aspect of the Stanley Cup playoffs means you still need to roll your guys out there and still need to have them engaged and involved and just give your dudes a little bit more of a breather. You said like the third period, they look stuck in mud. Overtime, it looked like practice for the Oilers. Like I made the joke on Twitter. It looked like during the intermission, the Kings bag skated their guys because they had nothing left out there. And it leads to a couple of bad turnovers. Again, we talked about it before, bad clearing attempts, which then leads to opportunities for Edmonton. They draw the penalty, they get the goal. Bob's your uncle. This series is tied. So again, we've gone a little bit longer here in the first little bit of this than I initially intended to, but this is such a fascinating series, and it's such a frustrating one. And just for me personally, because I know I'm right. I know that the Kings are better than the Oilers, and I know that they should be winning in this, and it is driving me up the wall that they're not, because you watch it, and when the two teams are kind of equal-ish footing, scoreboard-wise, effort-wise, whatever, the Kings are killing them, and it is just they're making these decisions again that are really, really costing them in this series, and gosh golly gee, is it very, very, very frustrating for them in that capacity. Other games tonight. The Toronto Maple Leafs have a chance to close out the Ottawa Senators. The Sens, they've been caught up in a lot of the stuff that Toronto normally gets caught up in, right? Like Ottawa is trying to do a lot of the little shitty things behind after each play that gets you out of your own game. And Look, I think Brady Tkachuk's been fantastic. I want to state that out front. I think he has been great. I think he's been the best center in the series. He's been one of the best players in the series. He has been everything you wanted to see from him in a playoff series. But this team has kind of fallen into a lot of the things that his brother fell into in Calgary, where you get so focused on being a prick that you kind of forget about the hockey part of it too, and it is just focused on, well, if we can win these little battles, then eventually that's going to break through. And sure, we're down 3-1, but if we just win these little nitpicky wars and get them out of their game, then boy, we're going to get them. And you forget about playing your own game, and so you get so focused on taking the other team out of their game, you lose your own yourself. And I think Ottawa has fallen victim to a lot of that. So again, I think that Tkachuk has been great, but I have not been impressed with everyone else that I've seen basically on Ottawa. And I think like Giroux, I think like you shouldn't be expecting a 37-year-old to come out and save your season, but I do think that he needs to be the veteran that goes in and like, hey guys, can't be doing this stuff. Can't be doing this stuff. There's a fine line to walk, and he has seen both sides of it. When he was in Philly, they got Sidney Crosby out of his game, and the Flyers were able to take advantage of that. But then they also went too far, took themselves out of it, and Sidney Crosby was able to take advantage and knock the Flyers out at different times as well. That's what's happening in Ottawa here, and now they need to rein it back in enough and still play their games. They have the talent to be able to at least put a dent into this series, but not the way they are playing right now. And like, again, we talk about teams that just kind of turn it on and off. The Leafs, what they have been able to do for long stretches in these series of holding Ottawa without shots in third periods and stuff like that have been really exquisitely done. And I think one of the things you see of the Berube style is how they've been able to kind of lock everything down and shut down Ottawa for these long stretches. And that's where the Sens start to lose it a little bit. And there's a bit of the frustration and immaturity that comes in as well. But we will see if Ottawa can kind of get their head on their shoulders tonight. They've hung around well, but they haven't done nearly as well as I thought they would have. Also tonight, Devils going up against the Canes. The Hurricanes are simply the better team. The Devils are trying, but Carolina, too fast, too talented, too good. We'll see about the goalie situation. That was a real missed opportunity for New Jersey. It looked kind of scary with Anderson going down in the way that he did. And you don't want to say, oh, it's a missed opportunity to not take advantage of an injury. But they had a cold goalie coming in. They got him for one on Sunday, but that was it. And to not be able to take advantage of that, and to not be able to take advantage and really push this into a series where all of a sudden there's some doubt and there's a here we go again in Carolina, it was just a miss for the Devils. And I think because of injuries and everything, they're just not good enough to make Carolina miss at this point, but that was a real substantial miss on their side. The Minnesota Wild and Vegas Golden Knights continuing to battle. Deeds mentioning in the chat before that he is hoping that the Wild can get a win in this spot tonight. I do think that there is a lot of people that kind of feel that way about Vegas. This one, it comes down to stars need to be the stars. Minnesota has got an excellent performance from Kaprizov in the games that they have won. And it really has come down to, on the nights where Kaprizov's the best player on the ice, Minnesota's winning those games. Vegas needs Eichel to step up and be the best guy out on the ice. They need Stone to step up and be one of the best players out on that ice coming up tonight. It really has just been as simple as the stars need to be the stars. I like how Vegas has responded to certain things, and we'll talk about teams that haven't here in a second, but they... this was the concern coming in, is that if the top guys aren't going, there isn't enough behind them now. This isn't a stacked Vegas team of a couple of years ago, as much as we like to think it has, and the salary cap and a lot of their moves have kind of caught up to them. And so instead of years past, it's Pacioretty as a secondary scoring option, and it's some of these other guys. Now it's Brett Howden that you're relying on for secondary scoring, and he's just, look, he's playing good, but it's not enough to beat Minnesota. So there is a lot on the line for this Vegas team here. One thing I will note, with Tampa Bay looking like they're on their way out, and Vegas in a bit of a rock fight right now with Minnesota, these are two teams that, while I do think there will be a little bit of grave dancing if they get eliminated in the first round, they are two teams that, surprisingly enough, actually have a fair amount of cap space going into next season. And so I think Mitch Marner is loving this, because you could see both Tampa Bay and Vegas just being, screw it, in this offseason. We're going to Evil Empire this thing again. It is a lot like when the Dodgers got eliminated in the divisional round in the year leading up to Shohei Ohtani's free agency. And so you got a little bit of a hey, but in the back of your mind it was like, oh no. Oh, they're gonna do everything they can to get Shohei now. Not that they wouldn't have before, but like now they're pissed off and going to be doing that. I could see Tampa Bay and Vegas being really aggressive in this upcoming offseason with the salary cap space that they have. And so the prettiest girl left at the bar is Mitch Marner. And so a lot of drinks going to be heading his way in the next little while. Because I think that those are two teams uniquely set up just and in their DNA anyway to be aggressive in off seasons, but especially if they're going to lose in the first round with actually some resources at their disposal to just go out and light it up. Of course, Flames fans are hoping that Vegas takes the opposite approach. And it's like, you know what? We're not as good as we need to be, so let's take a step back for a year or two because Calgary has control of Vegas's pick coming up in the next season. A couple other series that we just haven't had a chance to get to here just yet. Over the weekend, an awful showing from the Winnipeg Jets. Just horrendous what that team has put on. And the stat is that I think it is like the last 8 playoff games or something like that, they haven't won following a loss. So like once that ball starts rolling downhill, they're hooped. They're screwed. They don't get to do anything with it. They don't stop it at all. It is, we talk about it in fighting, where a guy just keeps coming forward and keeps that forward pressure on. You don't have that jab and circle to get away from it. The Jets don't have that. They just stand there and take it like they're Homer Simpson, but they can't. And it is the second that there is any adversity against them, they absolutely fold. They folded in these games against St. Louis, plain and simple. They have absolutely, I'm not going to say quit because I don't think that's in them, but they fold to these moments and they have crumbled under this pressure so far. And I think the Hellebuck discussion is a really fascinating one. We've already kind of gone long here today, so I don't want to get too far into it. I don't think Hellebuck, like if you go through and watch, and again, I said this on X, it's weird to say, look, the 12 goals he's allowed in the last 2 games, you can't blame him for those. But I do think if you go through a lot of them, there is breakdown. And so you can't really fault him for a lot of these. But if you're Winnipeg and you are paying this guy quite a bit of money to hang around and try to build this, you're hoping he stops some of them. You know, like it is one thing to say, well, defensive breakdown in front, can't really blame him for that. But your job, when you are getting, $8 million a year that Hellebuck is making, when you are being paid as one of the best goalies in the league, you got to make some high danger saves, right? And so, yes, in each highlight, if you look at it and it's like, well, can't blame him on that one. Well, can't blame him on that one. I think it is fine for Winnipeg fans to want their guy to make a fucking save every once in a while, at least. And for the Jets, God, do they need it right now. Like, even if it's a mistake, it leads to a breakaway chance and it's a goal. Like, okay, well, we can't blame our guy for that one. But I do think that it is nice to just be like, man, big save, big pick-me-up, let's go. And just kind of wake them out of their slumber a little bit. And just like, oh, well, here we go. And just get going. I think they need that in a big time way. So no, I don't think if we were to, like, if this series ends, the way that it's been going, I don't think you look at it and go, yep, Hellebuck is to blame. But right now, he is not a part of the solution either, and they need that tonight. But this team just needs to play better. Because look, like St. Louis isn't doing all that much to make life difficult on Hellebuck. Like, they're getting some traffic, but they're taking advantage of the situation and seeing what is working. And what's working is just, like, they're taking what Winnipeg is allowing them to. And right now, Winnipeg is allowing them a lot. Like, it has just been awful how Winnipeg has handled this. And so good on the Blues for smelling blood and taking advantage. A heartbreaker, again, for the Montreal Canadiens going up against the Washington Capitals. In that game, Washington finally able to break through. They had plenty of shots early on. Look, the defense is having some breakdowns on special teams for Washington. They're really having trouble for when Montreal is getting into the zone. And like Demidov and Slafkovsky, Demidov specifically has turned into, like, already, I don't want to say elite, but turned into a really high-level zone entry guy. And on a power play, that becomes so important. Like, how many times have you seen, oh, shot blocked and it's cleared? It happened in that one. Caulfield had a great look. One timer was blocked, it got cleared, they never got set up again. But then later on in the period, puck gets cleared out of the zone. It's Demidov. He's got excellent hands, really good patience, gets in on the entry, and now we're set up offensively, and now it's a goal. The Washington has really had a tough time in limiting a lot of those. And so I don't know, like, if these series go the way that they have been, it'll be Washington against Carolina in the conference semifinal. They're going to have a bit of a difficult time with guys like Aho and all of that working that type of a magic as well. But like Thompson, pretty sharp. For Montreal, this is, again, it's been an amazing experience. Great for them. They're just not creating enough 5-on-5. Like, the special teams is really, really strong. They need to carry that over into the 5-on-5 aspect of it. And then, like, Dubesh, or however you pronounce it, doing the best that he can in there in goal. But the big story of this one has obviously been, like, Tom Wilson running around and just laying guys out. And this isn't a, well, someone needs to make him pay sort of a thing. But it is just, like, the physicality of this series. I think Montreal is realizing it's at a level that they just aren't anticipating, right? Like, you can talk about playoff intensity and playoff mentality and all of that, but until you're out there and you're seeing all of these big hits and getting involved in this, it's something entirely different. And so credit Montreal, because they've been close in a few of these, and this is a team that's going to be really good, I think, for a while now. But the physicality of this series and Tom Wilson running around, it has led to a lot of hate in this series that I wasn't expecting, and it's like, looking on the outside, it's been kind of fun, but I was not anticipating this one getting this heated, and Washington has been able to kind of drag it into that area. So, gonna be a lot of fun watching all of it here tonight. A couple more from the chat here over on twitch.tv/primetimepk. Durango Jack in the first time in the chat. Go Blues, LMAO. I'm actually shocked at the heli breakdown. I honestly thought he was going to shake that curse, but it's also not all on him. Their defense fell apart. No, for sure. Their defense has been bad. And look, I kind of thought, to Durango Jack's point, I kind of thought that after the Four Nations, that Hellebuck playing big in big games, even though they lost eventually to Canada, I still thought him playing that well in those games would be the momentum boost that he needed. But yeah, it is just, again, to Durango Jack's point, it's not all Hellebuck's fault. But he is also not helping them win either. Like, just any high danger save would be gigantic for this team right now, and that just hasn't really happened for them in that way just yet. So, chat has been bumping over everywhere, right? Like, Jensen Smith saying hello over on YouTube. We've had a couple first-time chatters now with Mark Smith and Durango Jack here on Twitch, and we have a couple first-time chatters over on Kick as well. We have Willie asking about something in Spain that I haven't really noticed. So, either way, thanks to everyone who has been popping in today. For podcast listeners, we're splitting this one up here. This has already gone really long, talking about the hockey aspect of it. So we're going to break today's podcast up into two parts. So part one on the hockey, that one wrapped up. Thank you so much. And if you want to watch us live, you can do that. For those watching live, YouTube, Twitch, and Kick, we're now going to jump into part two of today's podcast. The National Basketball Association playoffs continue, and we haven't exactly been overwhelmed with the amount of drama so far, and goddamn was that on full display last night. But now we are learning a lot about these teams, and it is becoming really interesting as we get down the stretch of the first round. So we got NBA playoffs, plus a little bit more NFL and Blue Jays talk coming up here on part two of the podcast, and it kicks off, some would say even it tips off, with a few things that we have learned from the NBA playoffs so far. The NBA playoffs have not provided the drama that we would have wanted them to, but they've provided a lot of lessons that we have been able to learn so far, and none more clear than last night as the Cleveland Cavaliers whooped that ass and beat up on the Miami Heat. It is a 55-point loss to end the Miami Heat's season. And there's the joke, like, like, 1, 2, 3 Cancun. It's like, how much more Cancun do you want? You're in Miami. But like Barkley was saying, like, you got to leave town after this. After those losses that you're suffering on your home court, you gotta leave town. You gotta just get out of there. You know what? Go the opposite. Like, go up to the Yukon or Alaska if you want to stay USA and all that. Because this has just been, it's embarrassing for the Miami Heat. And I know a lot of people had a lot of jokes about Heat culture until they made a run to the championship. I think we can kind of pause Heat culture for at least a year. I think when you lose by almost 100 points in 2 games on your home court to close your season, I don't think you get to brag about your culture for at least a year. That feels like that should be the rule, that you just don't get to do that. Because this was embarrassing, a complete embarrassment from the Miami Heat to not be ready to go in that way. And look, they are so clearly the second most talented team in this series, right? Like Cleveland is awesome. And credit Cleveland because they just came out and a complete performance. And I think they recognized what they had and they recognized how breakable this team was. But again, if teams are recognizing that about you, can't be bragging about your culture. Can't do it. Sorry, you just don't get to for at least a year. You have to take a pause on that. An abysmal performance from Miami on their home floor. And Eric Spoelstra, with the quote after saying, like, this was eye-opening. This was humbling. Miami has to treat this as such. The fact that they were able to get into the playoffs after the Jimmy Butler situation and everything like that, like it is a credit to them. And I do think, while I'm having some fun with the Heat culture thing, I do think that the culture of this team is set in a really good way. The problem is the talent isn't. And there is a substantial gap right now between them and the high-level teams in the Eastern Conference. Like this just, it wasn't close. And you look at the rest of the playoff teams right now. Orlando, who's probably getting ousted tonight. I think that as these two teams are set up, maybe Miami gives Orlando a run for their money, but that's because Orlando's hurt. And they're missing Jalen Suggs. And you just plug that back in, and I think they rolled them. And then the Milwaukee is going through it right now. But I still think, like, a 7-game series, I think Milwaukee wins that. And then, like, no one, like the Pistons. Look at how the Pistons are battling. That was not there in Miami. So the Heat do, I think, need to take a real hard look at what is happening with them right now and see where they can get this thing back on track. Because again, ugly the other night. Or last night, sorry. And Cleveland, again, credit to them. They weren't messing around and just dominated. Donovan Mitchell, fantastic performance. Allen, getting the steal there early, getting up in the dunk. Like, all the guys stepping up. Mobley, now that he has that 3-point game down again, he can use that. I think he is more comfortable attacking, and Miami just didn't recognize that and just like, oh yeah, attack, go for it, whatever. Offensively for Miami, like, Hero is great, but and part of it, I do think, like, I think Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the league and criminally underrated. When you have, like, a team kind of based around one guy, and then that guy doesn't want to be there anymore, but you don't get anything for him for a while, and then at the trade deadline, all of a sudden you got a bunch of new guys coming in, and you have to try to implement them. It's tough to kind of figure out where your offense is going to go. So I do think now having an offseason that maybe is a bit more settled, although in Miami maybe it won't be, but an offseason's a little bit more settled and seeing where everyone fits in, I think that this is going to be a valuable offseason for Miami and a really, really, really important one for them. But the Cavs are off to the next round. They will play the winner of the Pacers-Bucks series, I believe. Right? Yeah. They'll play the winner of the Pacers-Bucks series coming up here in just a little bit. Knicks Pistons. They meet tonight after an absolute thriller of a weekend. And I think, like, if you are a Pistons fan, it's house money at this point, right? Like, they are getting so much out of their young players and stepping up in big time ways here. That has been very, 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 I think, fruitful for Detroit on down the road. Over on the Kick Chat. Suzanne Tucker, hey, what's up? Talking sports. Happy to have you along. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Right now, we're talking about the Pistons and the Knicks. Yes, I think valuable learning experience here for Detroit. But while you're in it, you kind of want to win it. And that was a heartbreaker for them on Saturday night on Sunday afternoon. To lose in that way is really difficult. And look, Cade Cunningham has had predictable ebbs and flows in this series, but I do think there is a leveling up to his game that is happening now. Now that he's more comfortable in this spot, now that the bright lights of the playoffs aren't too much, I do think that there is a leveling up in his game. And now look, Detroit, I still think are going into every game a little bright-eyed with everything, right? Like a little bit like, oh my God, it's the playoffs. We got to get off to oh, here we go. And then all of a sudden they're down by 10 right away. They have had some tough starts in these games. And then once they settle in, they battle back in a very important way and leads to a bit of a sprint to the finish. And in one game it happened where they were able to come back and get it. In this one, it almost did. And in a couple, they weren't. So there's an inexperience here with them. But I again, it is all still a heartbreaker for them. And like they were one make away, Hardaway in the corner away, or even Cade getting that look in the paint on a jump shot. They are one that away from having the series being evened up. Instead, now you're going back to Madison Square Garden, which is a home court advantage, and facing elimination. It's a lot to overcome for this young team, but some real big moments for these guys. And like the Tim Hardaway season of his life, series of his life. Also, when they said year 12 for Tim Hardaway Jr., I said maybe it's because it's junior. I still view him as like, oh yeah, kind of new. And oh, look at him being plucked, and he's a 35-year-old guy now. So that one, it just made me feel a little bit old, but he is kind of having the series of his life so far and has been everything that the Pistons need from him. On the Knicks side, I do think you can be a little bit concerned. Because it does, like, they're going to be facing the Celtics in the next round, presumably. I do think you have to be a little bit worried about how the Pistons are battling back in all of these games. Like, again, all the credit to Detroit. But I feel like they wouldn't be battling back in this way against the Celtics or the Cavs, right? And that is the level that the Knicks want to be getting to. And they're not. They're not that. And so that they have done some good things to win these games. And credit goes to them for that one. But when we're talking about leveling up here, the Knicks just haven't. And so I do think you have to be a little bit concerned about how well the Pistons have been able to hang around and how tough it has been for New York to put these games away. I do think, though, that there are some positives to take away from the New York Knickerbockers in this. I do think Karl Anthony Towns showing up in the way that he has is very valuable. And like he has earned a lot of criticism over the years, like talking about on the best shooting big man of all time, as if we didn't just watch Dirk Nowitzki be a thing for most of our lives. And I mean, we can talk about who's a big man or what, but KD is 7 feet tall. So it's a hilarious claim. I do also think like this guy has just dealt with a lot of adversity in his NBA time. Jimmy Butler calls him out on his shit a lot when they're in Minnesota there, and you have that whole thing play out the way that it does. And then there is a lot of personal tragedy that Karl Anthony Towns had to play through. And I do think that a lot of guys would get a little bit more credit for that, but because Towns has a tendency to be a little bit cringy anyway, and was kind of bordering on that. Is he living up to what we thought he was going to be? Is he not? What is he? What isn't he? I think that it was a little bit easy for some people to just be like, well, it's just him anyway. He has been great in this series, and it's a series that is set up for him to be great in. It's a matchup that he can handle really well, whether it's if it's Jalen Duren with like drop coverage, he can hit a three over top of that. If they want to put Tobias Harris in his face, he's just bigger and stronger than Harris is, and he's kind of just ran right through him. So it's a series where it is set up for him to look good, but I do think, again, when we talk about leveling up, I think that Cat has in a little bit and is someone that you can genuinely trust as a number 2 option on your team. Now, stupid fouls have to stop, and he still takes one of those a game. But there's a lot with him that I think has been really great and a bit of a leveling up there. And man, Bridges stepping up with a couple of key shots late in that game. He has needed that because he is not living up to that hype and not living up to the deal that we talked about at the beginning of the year when he comes in for 5 first-round picks. And I was like, you just make that trade because this makes you a championship contender. The way he is playing is not. And he has to, again, level up to be able to find his way now and help the Knicks find their way into championship contention, or else he's going to find his way, into a lot of trade conversations, because there's going to be that about Milwaukee, who we'll talk about in a minute, and there's going to be that around the Phoenix Suns, which would be quite the full circle moment for him. But his name is going to come up in a lot of trade discussions if the Knicks are looking to get into that championship caliber, unless he can find that in the next couple of games. Tonight, the best series of the first round continues with the Nuggets taking on the Clippers. You get a thriller on Saturday with the Aaron Gordon dunk. This has been a brilliant chess match. And now, this is where I think these series get a lot of fun. It's 2-2, and everything's been adjusted for, right? Like, okay, we see what you're doing. We see how you're trying to counter what we're doing, and now we see how you have tried to counter our counters. There's no more counters left. Now it is just who is better, and we still don't really know who is better in these. Jokic, again, just simple brilliance from him, and I still think where their advantage is getting a little bit more size on the interior. If you can get Zubats out of there, let Gordon and MPJ, who's obviously dealing with it right now, but let those guys kind of be a little bit more bullies on the offensive glass, that I think goes a long way. But they need Murray to step up. They need Westbrook to just mind his P's and Q's. Like they need all of their guys to play at their highest level, because they only really have 6 guys, you know? And that depth area of the the Clippers, while not maybe a strength that you would view of them against some other teams, but like Kawhi is going. Harden is playing some of the best playoff basketball he has played, but you have to expect at some point that's going to falter. But then it's the other guy. Zubats is having a hell of a series, especially defensively. Powell has made some really big shots, and the backbreaker has been Batum coming in, and he'll just hit a couple of shots, and I don't know why, but it feels like every shot he makes is worth 7, because it just feels like that guy. Like we had this possession stopped. Now we can add to our lead, and then that guy is the one who is making the shots and killing us right now. That hasn't happened for the Nuggets yet. They haven't had that guy moment really at all in this series, and they are going to need that. But again, that is the thing we talked about this whole time, is that Denver has not built up their depth well enough, and KCP probably isn't playing well enough to have justified that contract. And Bruce Brown probably was overpaid when he left for free agency and then got traded to Toronto, but that doesn't mean then you just fill that with nothing. And they have, I think, kind of wasted this and made this a much more difficult series with Jokic than it needed to be, and a much more difficult season with Jokic than it needed to be. Moving into the other series here that could wrap up tonight, you have the Milwaukee Bucks on the brink against the Pacers. I have a feeling we're going to be having some off-season discussions about the Bucks here pretty quick, so I'm not going to get into the full discussion about it today, but obviously there's going to be a lot of conversations about where do the Bucks go now, with Dame Lillard out probably till around Christmas time next year with a torn Achilles. We have so many examples of, okay, he's going to come back, let's say January, he comes back. So 30, 40 games to go at that point. How many times have we seen guys in their mid to late 30s just come back from an Achilles injury and be perfectly fine? It's probably not, like, next year feels like just a complete write-off from a Dame perspective. And then so that gives us the 26-27 season is when this team, I think, can really rely on him again. And then he's going to be like 37, 38 years old. Like, this feels like the end now for the Bucks. And the problem is they don't have their picks for the next little while, because they have just been trying to add and try to get these pieces to extend the life of this Giannis window. And it sucks because he is playing so well, and everything going on around it, like there are, part of it is like SGA and Jokic just had like A+ level seasons. Part of it is like, I think, a little bit of fatigue, because Milwaukee is right around the middle of the standings. They're not going too high up. They're not going too high down. It's not a disaster, so we're not focusing on it a lot. But Giannis is having a stretch of some of the best basketball you will ever see in your entire life. And there's just no help around him. There's some dude out there named Green who's making some shots who I had never really heard of until this, but there's just not enough around him. And he is going to have to do it all by himself in these games to get them into even a game 6. They're not good enough as situated. And honestly, like, Lillard comes in and gives them a bit of a spark, but after that, like, there's just not a whole lot there. Swig of water for the workman. There's just not enough there right now in Milwaukee. And so we talked about it all series. The offense is really hard for this team to come by. And now defensively, which was the hallmark of how good these teams were when they were good, now defensively it's fallen off too much. And so they're just in a bad spot. And it feels like this is the end now of this kind of a run. And again, we'll talk about it later on, but I do also want to again give some credit to the Pacers because I feel like last season they injuries happen and all that, and all of a sudden they find themselves in the conference finals, and everyone is talking about them like they're Portland from a few years ago or Atlanta from a couple of years ago, where it's like, okay, we always get one in the conference finals that doesn't really deserve to be here, and that's them. But this team has leveled up this season. I'm using that phrase a lot here, but this team has grown this season, specifically on the defensive side. And look, when you are a Rick Carlisle team, eventually that's going to break through. But like they were a run and gun offensive team last year and a brilliant offensive team. And that led them to, again, conference finals. But I do think if you want it to be a little bit more sustainable, and we talked about this at the time, that defense has to get better. And it did. Halliburton, I think, is a good defensive player. Miles Turner can be a good rim protector. Siakam can be an average defensive player. At his height, he can defend pretty well. But they just, the effort they have on the defensive side, the turnovers they are able to create, and then how quickly they are able to counter off of that has been really effective. And now part of it is they have a very efficient and effective offense, and that just lets, they get buckets a lot. And so you can then set up in your regular half-court defense and everything is fine. But how aggressive they have been in forcing turnovers has been a big part of this series. And then, like, offensively, it's wild how good this team can be. And like, I don't even think we've had a real dominant Halliburton performance yet. Like I feel like Halliburton has been able to kind of bide his time, hit his big shots when he needs to, and have these big kind of moments, but Turner is hitting shots. Siakam is playing great. Nembhard might be the best player on the Pacers anyway this series. Giannis is the best player in this series with how he is playing. It's just overlooked because his team's losing by 40. But Nembhard is up there. He has been brilliant offensively. And so it's a tough team to play. And now they're going to get Cleveland in the next round. And Cleveland should be favored in the next round. But this Pacers team, I don't think it should be overlooked how good they are. And I'm fascinated to see how they handle that juggernaut out in Cleveland. Not going to go too in-depth on this one. The series feels over tonight. Boston against Orlando. The Celtics are simply better. Nothing about this series has really changed how you feel about any of it. Boston probably shoots too many threes, which means they probably miss too many threes. But aside from that, they are a very good defensive team going up against a very good defensive team, but they're a very good offensive team going up against a very bad offensive team in the Orlando Magic. And the Magic, I think, are going to be thrown into a lot of trade rumors and everything like that. They just simply need more offense. And maybe it's just a better offensive system or whatever it is, but they need on offense is basically the best way to say it, because it's ugly on the offensive side. And then
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Sorry. Gosh, I got to figure out a different phrase for SERIES. But in this matchup, it's been too good for, or it's just been too bad, sorry, on the offense for Orlando. So they, I think, are done. I think they're done in that sense here tonight. So again, it's a season, kind of a lost season for the Magic. That defense is elite, and Banchero is awesome. They just need one more, I think one more piece, and that piece might just be like an offensive coordinator to get this team to the next level. The big storyline from the weekend in the NBA was the devastating loss for the Lakers on home court this weekend. They had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter against the Minnesota Timberwolves, a chance to wrap it up on home court, go back up even 2-2, and have not on home court. But either way, you have a chance to go back home and have home court advantage in 2 of the next 3 games, where you only need to win 2 of the next 3 games and be able to take it there. And instead, they messed it up. And I do think they messed it up. We'll credit Minnesota in a second, but this one is on JJ Redick, I think. We know, and we talked about it a bit on the hockey side, for those watching the live stream, we know that there is a desperation this time of year. And okay, we need to shorten our bench. And in basketball, you tighten that rotation up from 10, 11 guys to 8 guys, and then maybe down to 7 or 6. You don't tighten it down to 5 for a full half, though. And so I get, like, it's desperation time. You want your best guys out on the floor that whole time. But you want your best guys to be at their best at the end. And so while LeBron James is a miracle of modern science and is still getting chased down blocks at the age of 40 whatever in year 22, he was obviously begged because he didn't get a break the entire fourth quarter. So I just think it was a tactical error from JJ Redick there. And look, they end up losing by, 3 points? And so you could say, well, look, we needed 3 extra points. We needed our big guys out there. But I just think, even if you just give him a minute or two, it just at the start or end of each half, just to get him a little bit of extra time out on the sideline, a little bit of extra time to just sit and recoup, it just I think this game goes a little bit differently. So yeah, you can go with your main guys that whole time. And look, like Jackson Hayes has felt a little unplayable in this series, but I don't care if you put Bronny out there. You just need to let these guys sit and chill for a second to get their legs back under them when you are playing the intensity of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Again, we talked about it with the LA King, a tough thing for LA teams, apparently. We talked about this on the hockey side, where the speed and skill of Edmonton means that you have to roll all 4 of your lines against LA because that is exhausting to play against. It's the same thing here for the Lakers. The speed, skill, and the size and physicality that Minnesota can play with Edwards, with Gobert, who's not an offensive dynamo in this series, but he'll wear on you, he'll lean on you, with Naz Reid, who will make you work, with Julius Randle, who's having the season of a lifetime, or a series of the lifetime so far. You have to have these guys be freshened up because they're just getting beaten up out there. And so you could see it. They wore down. They didn't have the legs that Minnesota had, and it ended up costing them. So while I think the world of JJ Redick as a coach, I think he's actually going to be a very good coach. This was a mistake. This was a miss by him in this particular one. And the frustrating part of it is, like, Reeves did not have a great game. Reeves was having a tough time getting away from any of the defense from Minnesota. But Rui was having a great game. And so I felt like I think there's a way you can stagger the minutes, and they did it all regular season, that you can stagger the minutes. You have one of Luka or LeBron out on the court at all times. And generally it was Luka and the bench, and then LeBron, Reeves, and others. And then going with it that way. But there was you could have gone, I think you would have been just fine with Luka, Rui, and even Finney Smith and a couple of other guys for a couple of minutes with how well Rui was playing in that game. Like, he gave you that opportunity as that strong fourth guy to let you rest LeBron for a couple of minutes. We're not talking about half of a quarter here. We're talking about a couple extra minutes to get him a little bit of a blow to let him come back and be at the peak of his powers for these games. And now it's desperate for them as they're down 3-1 in this series against a Minnesota team that is rolling. And this felt like a big moment for the Timberwolves franchise. And I get they made it to the Western Conference Finals last year after beating the defending champions in the playoff round, but this felt like another legacy win for Anthony Edwards, who was just fantastic again. And the fact that he has added that 3-point shot to his repertoire, there was a lot of that coming into the draft, his draft year, that, okay, he's an athletic guy, he's going to be able to attack the rim, he's going to be just kind of this slasher, crash, bang, boom guy. But you can see that the next level of it, and this is what you always want from your stars. The God-given abilities are obviously there. The physical gifts are obviously there. But that work ethic is so obviously there. And that is what makes him so dangerous and so great, is that he has worked to get better on the defensive end, to be one of the better defenders in the NBA. And now he has worked at that 3-point shot to make him one of the scariest offensive players to play in the NBA. And he has shown it up in the most effective ways in this. And so again, another addition to the legacy of Anthony Edwards. And this series has been amazing for the reputation of Julius Randle. This has been hey, where was this ever with Julius Randle? He has not been that ball stopper that, at times, he has not been that ball stopper that he has always been in his career. He has been effective shooting, and it's his attacking that has really opened things up a little bit, because now you got to be aware of it. Now you got to be ready that he's going to attack you instead of just, I want to be a spot-up shooter all day. Now he has been that guy, and he has fit in with this offense so very effectively. And so, like, look, you can't just rest LeBron out on him now. He is attacking, he is making him work, and he has been great. And then Naz Reid, I think that the stat still holds that he hasn't missed one shot in the fourth quarter of these games so far. He has been that dog defensively as well. And like that final possession where Luka is coming up and Redick is screaming on a possession before for someone to screen for Luka so he can get free a little bit. Well, okay, that screen comes, but Reed follows it all the way up there, and he puts that he switches onto him, and he does a fantastic job of at least letting or forcing Luka to get the ball out of his hands. They swing it over to Reeves, who again was cold. He misses the three, and the game is over. It is just because a lot of guys, you see a screen going up there that high, it's like, okay, that's one of the best players in the world out there in Luka Doncic. I'm gonna hang back. I'm not about to show up on a TikTok getting my ankles crossed over by this guy. So I'm gonna hang back a little bit. Instead, he is right in his face. He adds to the pressure of the situation and forces the ball out of Luka's hands. And while Reeves is a very good option, that's still the third option in the Laker offense. And so I think A, JJ needed to be ready for that, and B, fantastic work from Naz Reid to get to there. But just a big moment for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So that is your recap here of the postseasons on both sides. Deeds with the nice little chirp at Apple products with the get a real phone. Fair. You know what? Fair on you. That you know what? Google's not doing that. There's nothing I've said today sounds like, hey, Google. So, although we have had that before, because we have a Google Nest in the living room, have had that before where the voice pops up there and it scares the heck out of me. But, yes, no. Fair point. That may be a phone, or at least I should be able to disable Siri for these. Has been happening here. But either way, thank you guys so much for sitting through. Not going to say sitting through. I think it's been great talk so far. It's been a lot of fun hanging out with everyone. A reminder, we still got a couple more things to come here on the show. Some NFL and some Blue Jays talk. But I want to remind you guys, if you are watching this live, you can catch it in podcast form, whether that be on Spotify or as well on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening in podcast form, you can get these in video on YouTube. We break up all the different segments into YouTube videos as well. And plus you can watch them live on YouTube, Twitch, or on Kick. I want to be doing a little bit more on Kick. I have a few ideas with that as we kind of grow this whole thing. But yeah, wherever you are watching this or listening to this, just know that there are a lot of other places you can do it with Couch Potato Diary. And always, follow me on social media. I am flying by the seat of my pants on a lot of this stuff. So, like the Discord thing that was chatted about earlier in the chat, maybe I should. But anything you want to see on the streams, anything you don't want to see on the streams, any of that, let me know. And I will see what I can do with all of that. But right now, the biggest story in sports this weekend, it wasn't playoffs, unfortunately. It was a 5th round drafted quarterback. So we had to talk about it. Let's talk about Shedeur Sanders. The NFL world was on the edge of its seat, waiting for Shedeur Sanders to get drafted. And waiting. And waiting. And waiting. It got out of control. The whole thing got so out of control. And look, we talked about it a couple of months ago with our quarterback needy teams and everything like that, and the desperation that comes with that. And I will say, kudos to NFL teams for not doing what NFL teams have done for a very long time. And that is, well, we need a quarterback, draft a quarterback. Need him. We got to get him. Let's do it. Because I feel like there would be a lot of drafts where Shedeur would have gone very early. Now, do I think he fell too much? Yes, I do. I absolutely do. He is better than a 5th round pick. There's no question about that. From a talent aspect, he is so much better than a 5th round pick. But also the talk of him going second at some point, or he wasn't the second best prospect in the draft. When we did the quarterback needy episode a while ago, like during the NFL season, Cam Ward was the 9th best player on people's boards, and Shedeur, I think, was 15, was kind of the consensus where he was at. And so drafting that guy second can set your franchise back a little bit, because while I do think that Shedeur has quite a bit going for him, I also don't believe that he should be a starter year one. And so, the talk of, well, New Orleans needs a quarterback, Pittsburgh needs a quarterback. That is doing him a gigantic disservice to put him in a spot where he needs to go out and needs to be successful right away, especially with Pittsburgh, to go out and battle with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow 4 times a year and try to keep up with those teams in the playoffs, while also having to deal with Mahomes and Allen and all these teams in the AFC to try to grow into a playoff spot, while also trying to overcome what are some talent deficiencies in his game. That's not fair to him. It probably also wouldn't have been fair to just throw him out there with the Saints, although you don't really have that same level of competition, and so maybe you could get away with it. But I do think that there is a lot of discussions that need to be had. And I do think that for a very long time, and probably still, there are a lot of things that you can look at in the NFL. And if it's like that seems a little bit questionable. Pointing to racism doesn't seem like it is the biggest stretch to go to when you look at how some NFL people are treated, how some other NFL people are treated, how some NFL people are talked about, and how other NFL people are talked about. So I could absolutely see where if you saw this situation playing out and you just wanted to walk by and be like, that's racism, I can see where you would get to on that one. I genuinely, and look, as a white dude in Canada, maybe this isn't my place to decide. No, I am not the high court of this or anything like that. But I think that there are at least a few football-y things that you can use to justify it. Not racism, but to justify the Shedeur Sanders falling at least here. So I think the big one, and it's Deeds mentioning it in the chat, the reports of him ignoring some teams during interviews is crazy. He is either getting some really, really bad advice, or that's probably it. Like or just has an inflated sense of self, which it's probably both, right? Like that there wasn't, because he's him and his family is what it is, he didn't really have an official agent. And I think that is the first thing. They needed to keep the Dion aspect of it kind of at arm's reach a little bit. And that was one of the things coming out of their camp was that, this is an attack on Dion. I was like, well, if he is so attackable, why do you have him so close to the kid then? And I get like father-son relationship. And that is something that is kind of overlooked in all of this because of how they portray themselves sometimes, is that it's really cool that was a relationship that played out over the last 4 years in college. And now that this is going to be an NFL thing that they share. Like, that's a really, really cool thing that could be happening here. But if this is how it's going to play out, it was a gigantic misstep. The advantage of being the Nepo kid is Dion has been in the NFL and he understands kind of how the game works and all those different things. And so as a coach too, and as a recruiter, you have to know that you can't go in with that sort of a thing. Look, if he wants to sandbag an interview with the Chiefs, that seems that Kansas City's probably set at quarterback, right? Although, given how this whole thing played out, I would suggest that maybe him being the backup to Mahomes wouldn't have been the worst thing, you know? But yeah, unless you are, like, look at this draft right now that we just had. Cam Ward, I don't even think Cam Ward could have effectively ignored and sandbagged interviews. You had a pretty good idea that he was going to go 1 to the Tennessee Titans, but they were saying, look, we're not going to pass up generational talents. Well, that's Travis Hunter and that's Abdul Carter. And then after that, again, there are certain teams that need a quarterback. You probably don't need an interview with the Patriots. They got their guy. But other than that, I don't even think Cam Ward could have really just passed on a lot of interviews. Travis Hunter could have. Travis Hunter didn't need to take an interview with the Packers. He wasn't getting down to the Falcons down at 15. Okay, that wasn't happening. The furthest he was going was 3, maybe 4 if teams got a little frisky with the quarterbacks there. But then after that, he probably didn't need to. I was gonna say he didn't need to take an interview with Jacksonville. Jacksonville ends up taking him, which is also the other part of the Shedeur thing. I'm not gonna be there when you guys draft. It's like, hey, have you heard of trades? Have you seen some of the dumb trades that have been made? We just saw Ricky Williams on a podcast. The Saints traded their whole draft class for that guy. So I don't think you can dismiss anyone if you are a quarterback and there are teams potentially moving up for you in the draft. So yes, two guys in this entire draft could have sat out the interview process. So it is an arrogance and it is just a level of dumb that should not be happening around that kid. The other part of it is that if he is not going to start for you, is that a distraction you really want? And I don't think he should be starting for you. And so that's why I still think the Raiders were the best situation for him. Because you have for the first time in a long time, you have basically, for lack of a better term, a mature front office in Vegas with Tom Brady as the owner. Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, like these guys have been around the block a time or two. I'm not going to say Chip Kelly's job security is great. Like one of those things is not like the other. Tom Brady, Pete Carroll, and Chip Kelly. But for Brady and Pete Carroll, they're not going anywhere. Like they have an understanding and they've kind of seen a lot of these things before. So if Geno Smith goes 2-3 with the Raiders to start and Deion Sanders is up at the podium after week 6 in the college football season, like, yeah, I know we just lost 28-21, but what the fuck are the Raiders doing? That Pete Carroll's gonna be like, well, like he can do the Patrick Wall. Like, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. I got my Super Bowl ring in my ear. But those guys can handle that. A lot of coaches couldn't, and a lot of front offices couldn't. And so if you're going to bring him in to redshirt him, which is what the kid needs, maybe you would rather have Jackson Dart. And look, maybe Jackson Dart's ceiling isn't as high as Shador's, but Dart's not starting week 1 for the Giants. Neither was Shador. And I'm not going to have to fucking hear about it from Deion for week after week after week. And from the media week after week after week. Like, hey, why isn't the kid playing? Why isn't the kid playing? Because he's not ready. And then I have to say that my kid's not ready. And now that's me shitting on him. And it turns into a whole other thing. So it just became this problem that they created themselves. And that's... You feel tough about it. But again, I do think a lot of the conversations kind of veered way too far away, right? Because, like, I was talking to my wife about the whole situation, explaining to her everything that was going on and everything with it. And then I was like, the good thing is that as the draft was going, and basically after Pittsburgh passed, it was like, okay, so this kid's going to be in a free fall. And so people... Mel Kiper, but a lot of people got very frustrated. And so you were starting to see clips of him on social media. And I do think that the reactions kind of went a bit too far on Shador, because watching it, I was like, oh, right. Like, he was good, you know, and there are measurables that he needs improvement on. He doesn't have the biggest arm. He doesn't have a lot of those offensive gifts that a lot of these guys have. But the fact that he was able to drag that Colorado team to basically national relevance with minimal help, aside from Travis Hunter, was quite something. And so, like, he has those intangibles that you really do like. But again, if we're going to be selling a guy on intangibles, let's not be screwing up the board interview and everything like that, right? So, but it was nice at least to see the videos. And it's like, oh, right, this isn't a guy who we're going to get to training camp and get to OTAs. And it's like, oh, maybe he should have been throwing left-handed the whole time. That was the problem. He wasn't that bad, but he wasn't nearly as good as he thought he was. And I actually think the Browns are now a bad landing spot for him. I think they were a spot that made the most sense. You have the big money quarterback in Deshaun, who's probably not playing this year. Who, again, by the way, can never mention him without saying, awful human being. So you have that. You have Joe Flacco, who is in there as the whatever. Now, you're going to have some explaining to do because the social media video came out with Deion Sanders being like, Joe Flacco, he's my age, which is a funny line, but kind of an awkward thing for your dad to say about your teammate now. But then they also draft a quarterback. And so, like, it just, once you do that, I feel like it takes you out of the Shador thing, regardless of, like, okay, it's fallen enough. I just feel like no matter what is happening, whether it is Flacco or whoever at quarterback, there's always going to be but what about Shador? What about Shador? What about him? Why not? Hey? And the Browns aren't in a spot that lets him develop in that way. And now you have 2 rookies who you're trying to develop. So honestly, like, I feel like what should happen is Joe Flacco gets to just like hang out, like read the playbook, whatever, get a couple of things, but it should be Shador getting all the reps in practice, which is kind of what the Patriots were able to do with Drake May, because Jacoby Brissett knows the system that he was in, so you let him just kind of zip the ball all the way around, whatever, and Drake May gets all the reps in practice because what's Jacoby going to turn into at this point? You let Drake May get a lot of the reps in practice, let him develop so that he can hit the ground running. You have 2 rookie quarterbacks you're going to try to do that now with out in Cleveland. So I think they screwed it up quite a bit. I think all of the different sides really did screw that one up. Also, Deed's mentioning the CFL draft. CFL draft is tonight. The global draft just happened. I will say the Shador Sanders being added to the Toronto Argonauts neg list, it's funny. And look, at some point, we all made the joke, right? Like, I said, oh man, Stamps are going to be regretting that when the Riders sign Shador Sanders. So there's a little bit of, humor in that. Shador is not built for the Canadian Football League, okay? I get that it's the secondary league. We all understand that in Canada, right? But, so it's easy to say, oh, failed NFL guy just coming to the CFL. It's not. People have been doing this for years. It is not built for him. When you are talking about, well, he doesn't really have the big arm. Do you know how fucking big this field is? It's bigger that way and that one. All the ways that you can figure for how a field can be bigger, it's bigger. So some of the throws that you're worried about him making in the NFL, you got to throw it 55 yards that way on a 6-yard out. So what? No, that one's not going to work at all. So get that thought so far out of your mind. Also, if you're not going to have that, you kind of need to be a mobile guy because there's more room. And because there is more room, teams go with a few more speed type options at pass rush and linebackers, right? Like, there's a reason why Cam Wake was a down lineman in the CFL and went up north or went down south and became a linebacker. It's because that's kind of the size of those guys because the field, again, is huge. So you're dealing with a little bit more speed. You got more room to run around. So being a mobile guy kind of helps that too. So Shedeur Sanders is uniquely set up to fail miraculously in the Canadian Football League. So that one, no. It would get attention, which would be fun. But he is much more suited for the whatever UFL thing that's going on right now is. So that one's a no for me, dog. That's a pass there. Deed's also asking here in the chat, CFL draft, who goes first and who's available for the Riders at 4? I'll be honest, man. The CFL draft, I don't like saying I don't know things. The CFL draft is not necessarily in my wheelhouse. It is kind of one where I will watch it. I will at least follow it, and I will see what people smarter than me will say about it. Now, I will say that doing some games for the Dinos this year has made me pay a little bit closer attention to it now. I think we're lagging here a little bit. But the unique part about the CFL draft is like you got 2 quarterbacks as the top 4 prospects, according to 3 Down. The 2 guys, like the... one played in the Senior Bowl, right? Or the East Restaurant, one of them. But Elgersma out of Wilfrid Laurier. And Curtis Rorick, he got drafted, or did he get drafted? Yeah, he got drafted to San Francisco. And so, like, this would be an obvious, no doubt, number 1 overall pick, the quarterback, Curtis Rorick. Makes so much sense. Or even Elgersma, if you want to do that. But because, like, and also Ao Manor, the kid out of Medicine Hat, there's no way I'm saying that right, playing at Stanford, like, he gets drafted too. So we're talking about different availabilities and everything like that. So it becomes a bit of a chess match of what do you want to do here. I do think that the Stamps are kind of set up in a way that if they wanted to go with the 2 quarterbacks who both have aspirations of playing in the States, that you brought in Vernon Adams. He is not old, but he's not young, you know? So you have a couple of years with him. He does good things for your team. And then, hey, look at this. Rorick or the Wilfrid Laurier kid are ready to come back. And now we have our quarterback of the future and our quarterback succession plan in place. Perfection. Nailed it. 100% nailed it. That being said, it feels like a waste of a first overall pick. Also, I wouldn't blame Adams for having a bit of a thing about quarterbacks named Rorick that could be coming in and taking his job after what happened out in BC. So in terms of who goes number 1, I just feel like it would be a waste for Calgary to go with someone that's not going to help them now. They need, I think, something that helps them at this exact moment in time. And so maybe like a Keelan White or someone along those lines maybe helps them out now. And look, maybe some of these guys have been signed to free agents and I just missed it. So again, it's probably a little irresponsible of me to be talking about this, but I think that having bringing in another wide receiver, having Keelan White going there, I think would help out quite a bit. So maybe you go that way. And in terms of the Riders at 4, I do think now they are set up in a spot that if they wanted to do the Rorick thing, you know, you got Trevor Harris, vet quarterback. You have I think a pretty good football team. And I think that they've lost some, but they have really added in free agency as well. I think that's what, if they wanted to go one of the quarterbacks, and you know what, we'll give you a couple years down south. But if you're ready, we can bring you here. And I get, we can't pay you what they can pay you down there officially, but if you want to be All of a sudden, a sponsorship from a car dealership comes in, and hey, look at that. Or guest spots on a radio show that all of a sudden get paid for. But look at us. Look at us go. So I think the riders are in a spot that they could do that. I think really effectively. So I would have the riders going with the off the board pick. But I am hoping to have someone on to talk more knowledgeably than this on the CFL draft coming up here today. That's happening a little bit later on. Hoping to get some people on to talk about it later on in the week. I've been promising, and I'll show. Look, this stream is over 2 hours, and I've been talking for an hour 45. That's even with the took me a while to get going here to begin. But I've been promising we'll talk about the Blue Jays. So let's put a bow on this one today, talking about the Toronto Blue Jays and my frustrations with them over the weekend. Look, it's been a long stream, but that intro is my favorite of the ones that we have here, so I have to talk Blue Jays. Although, a little bit frustrating for the Toronto Blue Jays this weekend in a series against the New York Yankees. The season starts with a lot of optimism. Well, it didn't necessarily. They lost 12-2 to the Orioles. But then after that, they won 8-2, and then they lost by a bunch again. But now, then they beat up on a bunch of teams that aren't as good as they are. And maybe they catch the Baltimore Orioles at a bad time. And hey, look at this. Maybe this Blue Jays team is something. But this weekend was a reminder of just the level of mid that we are dealing with this Toronto Blue Jays team right now. The offense is the problem. There's no question about that. They get 3 hits, 1 run against the Yankees in that second game. They have a doubleheader on Sunday, and they scored 3 times in the entirety of it. Now, they got 11 hits in the one, so that's great. But again, the margin of error for this team is just so small when you have to just string hit after hit after hit after hit after hit together. We can have a discussion about how maybe baseball has gotten too heavy on the home run, and especially since they unjuiced the balls and everything like that. But it is still, with the high level of pitching that we have in this league right now, it is still really hard to just string 9 hits together to be able to score 3 runs in an inning. Sometimes it's nice when you can just score 2 with 1 swing, and the Blue Jays just don't have enough of that. I do think Vladdy will turn that on like he did as the weather warmed up a little bit. Santander, this has kind of been the path that he has followed his whole career. I get frustrated by it a little bit. There was a story up on sportsnet.ca on Friday being like the start for the start for Anthony Santander shouldn't concern Blue Jays fans. It's like, man, it's been 25 games. Like, at some point, I'm allowed to be concerned. And the stat was that last year, from May 1st on, Santander hit 40 home runs, which is a lot. And so if you could do that here, then I will forget about it, for sure. But I do think that at some point, I'm allowed to be a little concerned about what's happening with my baseball team and the offense here. Because he was brought in to fix this problem. The problem is persisting. Fix it. And it's another thing, and it has driven me mad the whole time. And I get it. He was not brought in to help this team in April. He was brought in to help this team get to October. So I don't want to say, change everything so that you can peak for April and you're begged by the time August comes around. But if this has been a problem your whole career, why can we not adjust it a little bit? You know? And again, he hit 40 home runs from May on. So I could be coming back on here in a month being like, yeah, well, missed that one on Santander. He's been great. Shouldn't have been concerned at all. But I just feel like if you have had a specific problem for a long time and you're just like, well, ends justify the means. It's like, or we could figure out how to be good that whole time. Just a thought. But no, the offense isn't good enough. And the problem is, the concerning part of it is that there isn't a reinforcement coming. You know, like, in times past, it was maybe like hey, well, could Vlad get called up? Could have this, could have that, whatever. Or one of these guys is going to heat up because they had an offense like that. I do think that Bo has been spectacularly unlucky to start this season. And if he keeps hitting the way that he does and keeps approaching things the way that he does, that it's going to go his way eventually. But aside from that, like, I'm not expecting, oh man, you know what? Ernie Clement's going to turn this thing around. No, Ernie Clement's being Ernie Clement, man. Like, a lot of these guys are just being them. You're getting more than you should out of guys like Heineman and Straw for some stretches. That there isn't aside from Santander, there isn't that main underperformer that you're like, okay, well, once that's going, the offense is really going to kick into high gear. It's like, once he gets going, the offense is only going to be mediocre instead of bad, and that's great. And this is with Springer getting off to a good start too. And down in the minors, like, it's been miserable weather-wise for the Buffalo Bisons, just the schedule that they have played. And Arelis Martinez apparently is not a bad weather player, because he has been dreadful so far. And that was kind of the break glass in case of emergency guy that I thought the Blue Jays had, that they could go to that dude and maybe help the offense out a little bit. But he's not even, like, his on-base percentage isn't even hitting his weight right now. So there's some concerns there for sure. So the offense just has to get better. Also, like, Schneider, I feel like he has overlearned from playoff lessons in the past, and I wish he had the level of patience he had with Gausman and Bassett in that doubleheader. I wish he had in the playoffs a couple of years ago, because he's giving his guys some runway now, and I appreciate that. I do. I think that it is too easy for teams to just get the hook for their starting pitchers and make it a bullpen thing, especially when the middle part of the bullpen isn't as strong for the Blue Jays. I think that, like, a quick hook would be a bad thing. But, like, I'm in a Blue Jays group chat, and they're like, oh man, this game got out of hand fast. Like, it did, but not in a way that wasn't preventable. Like, it got out of hand quickly in that if you look at the box score and it's like 1-0-5, it's like, wow, that escalated fast. But the inning was just a slow bleed, and Schneider just left Gausman in there to do that. And then in the second game, the same thing happened with Bassett. Now, he was able to work out of it. He pitches with not his best stuff and is able to grind through until Aaron Judge takes him deep, I think, in the sixth. But I think Schneider, there's a balance where, okay, let's not run our guys too quick. Let's give them a lot of time to work through their issues, and let's battle back that way, and let them battle through it that way. And that's fine. You can grow a lot from that. But there is a point where it's like, no, it's been lost. And I think Schneider hasn't really found that balance either way yet. So I think the manager did more harm than good this week. But overall, with this Blue Jays team, they just don't feel like they were on the level of the Yankees. Like, they get the win on Friday, but that felt more like the Yankees losing it. Like, Williams has the meltdown and the Jays get a couple of big hits. Aside from that, like, the series went how the Yankees went. And if the Yankees had a bit of a down stretch, then the Blue Jays were able to take advantage. But once the Yankees got good, the Jays couldn't hold up. And that's where they're at. The Blue Jays are better than bad teams, and the Blue Jays are worse than good teams. It's just an average ball club at the moment. And so there are, I think, some needs that need to be addressed for the Toronto Blue Jays going forward. That is going to do it for a lengthy stream here today. Thank you all so much for hanging out on this one, all the way into the noon hour out here in the Mountain Time Zone. So yes, thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, if you missed anything, this is going to be available in 2 parts in podcast form. You can check it out wherever you get your podcasts, including on Spotify as well as on Apple. And if you're listening in podcast form, you want to get these early, we do it live every time. Well, not every time, but a lot of them live on youtube.com/@CouchPotatoDiary, twitch.tv/PrimetimePK, and kick.com/PrimetimePK. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. Again, as always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca, that great Calgary swag. The hats are going, but we're getting more, and different ones too. So a lot of good stuff coming from Sea of Dead. The week gets thrown off a little bit because I was sick yesterday, so this is the only stream today. Going to do a little bit more tomorrow. I think tomorrow is going to be more of the video game stream again, and kind of get everything kind of back on track for what I want to do. And then Thursday will be another podcast stream. So for video game fans, twitch.tv/PrimetimePK is going to be the spot to be tomorrow at 9 a.m. Going to be doing the stream there. And then coming up on Thursday, we are going to have the podcast again. So all the places that you are consuming this, it's going to be back on Thursday. Thank you all so much for hanging out today. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. And I will talk to you all later. Have a great Tuesday, everybody, and we'll enjoy some awesome sports tonight.